Hello and welcome to Stories of Science. Here, we look back on humanity's long journey to understand the world. The questions, the failures, and the breakthroughs that slowly changed how we see the universe and ourselves. We tell science as stories. The Boy Who Lit the World: How Faraday Turned Curiosity into Electricity. Can you imagine a kid selling newspapers on the streets, running errands in the chilly winds of London, who would one day completely change the way electricity powers our world? That kid was none other than Michael Faraday. Picture London in 1791, a humble, dimly lit ironmonger's home, the faint glow of oil lamps casting shadows across the room. Four kids huddled around their father's stories, words about hard work, honesty, and thrift. And in that modest home, the youngest child, Michael, had eyes wide with curiosity, always watching sparks fly from the iron on the forge and wondering, if I could figure out how the world really works, maybe one day I could light up faraway houses without even touching them. Michael's father, James, was a frail man, constantly hammering away at cold iron in his little workshop to keep the family afloat. His mother, a gentle yet resilient woman from the countryside, kept the household running with patience and love. They had little money, few resources, and almost no access to formal education, but they made sure the kids knew that poverty shouldn't extinguish ambition. For Michael, these hardships weren't obstacles, they were fuel for curiosity. He barely had 2 years of formal schooling. By age 12, he was selling newspapers on London streets, dodging carts and puddles, the weight of the day's papers on his skinny shoulders. And yet, when night fell, he became a self-taught scientist, hunched over the leftover books he could scavenge from bookstores or hand-me-down encyclopedias. Oil lamp flickering, shadow dancing on the walls, Michael would read, sketch, and even perform tiny experiments on his tabletop. Materials for experiments were a luxury he couldn't afford. So what did he do? Faraday made magic from scraps, broken bottles, copper wire scavenged from the streets, bits of iron. With these humble items, he tested chemical reactions, measured gases, and watched sparks fly from primitive electric setups. And yes, sometimes things exploded. Smoke would fill the room, flames would flare up, but instead of fear, he laughed. Science, he would joke to himself, is supposed to come with a little bang. Every failure was a lesson, a puzzle piece in the grand picture he was building of the natural world. His life was like a never-ending adventure series, mornings selling papers for a few pennies, afternoons apprenticing in a bookstore learning how to bind and organize books, and nights experimenting under the dim glow of his lamp. Occasionally, he would grin at the tiny sparks dancing across the ceiling, thinking, if I can figure this out, one day the whole world might be lit up by electricity and I'll know why. Faraday didn't just tinker, he organized knowledge. His notebooks were packed with sketches, diagrams, and experimental notes, almost like a diary of a miniature scientist. He might have been slight in stature, but in his head, the whole universe of chemistry and physics was alive, with equations and electric sparks dancing in rhythm. He wasn't completely alone. Some bookstore owners and a few friends recognized his curiosity and often lent him books or small experimental tools. Picture this: a teenager scuttling through narrow London streets, selling newspapers to earn a few pence, then spending that money on a bottle of acid or a coil of copper wire. That was his lab, a pocket-sized world of endless possibilities. And it wasn't long before his talent caught someone's eye. In 1803, he attended a lecture at the Royal Institution given by Humphrey Davy, already a famed chemist. Michael took furious notes, scribbling down every step of Davy's experiments. Later, he spent nights compiling over 300 pages of meticulous notes and mailed them to Davy. You can imagine his nervous excitement, a poor newspaper boy daring to send his self-taught notes to one of England's top scientists. That letter changed everything. Davy was impressed and soon took Faraday on as his assistant at the Royal Institution. For the first time, Michael entered a world brimming with real chemicals, strange gases, magnets, and electricity. Experiments often turned the lab into a miniature fireworks show. Bottles would explode, sparks would fly, smoke would curl around the ceiling. Michael even narrowly escaped a few times, but he never flinched. Instead, he learned faster, observed closer, and recorded every detail. Over time, he became indispensable at the Royal Institution. Davy taught him technique, but Faraday added something unique: a sharp eye, patience, and relentless curiosity. Slowly, the scientific world began to notice the boy who had once sold newspapers on the street. Yet he remained humble, never chasing titles or honors. When offered a knighthood, he reportedly replied with a grin, "Science is honor enough, I don't need a crown." This humility and single-minded focus allowed him to explore electricity and magnetism without distraction, laying the groundwork for discoveries that would electrify the world literally. From a street kid dodging carts and rain, to the core of the Royal Institution Laboratory, Michael Faraday's journey is a story of curiosity, determination, and a touch of humor, a story that sparkles as brightly as the sparks he loved to chase. As time flowed on, Michael Faraday grew from that scrappy newspaper boy into one of the world's most celebrated scientists. His tiny corner experiments at home were long replaced by the bustling laboratories of the Royal Institution. Every spark, every twitch of a wire in his hands, held the potential to reveal new truths about the natural world. People began to speak of Faraday not just as a man, but as a symbol of electromagnetic induction, of magnetic fields, of electrochemistry. It was respect, yes, but also history etching his name into the annals of science. In his later years, Faraday's life remained modest, yet his mind was richer than most kingdoms. He politely declined knighthoods and honors, choosing instead to devote himself to experiments and public lectures. His famed Christmas lectures drew crowds in London: children, adults, anyone eager to glimpse the wonders of electricity and magnetism. No aristocratic title, no flashy estates, just the lasting honor of being remembered, of shaping how humans understand the universe. By the 1830s, age and health began to tug at him, but his curiosity never waned. He continued to observe, record, and analyze, distilling decades of experience into every experiment. His mind remained as quick as electric current, his senses tuned to the subtle pulse of the natural world. In 1856, Faraday passed away quietly in London, leaving behind a legacy that outshines even the brightest lamps. He was buried in Highgate Cemetery, a serene resting place among artists and scientists, with a simple headstone reflecting the same humility he carried in life: pure devotion to knowledge over pomp. And here's the kicker: every time you flip a light switch, scroll on your phone, or hop on an electric train, you're riding on the legacy of that boy who once jumped at sparks in a dim alleyway. From selling papers on the streets to lending his name to the farad, the standard unit of capacitance, Faraday's life was a reminder that curiosity and persistence can literally light up the world. If the teenage Faraday's home lab was a miniature battlefield, then the grown-up Faraday became a bona fide magician of science. He took electricity and magnetism, forces that had seemed mysterious and untouchable, and turned them into tools that could be measured, controlled, and applied. In 1831, he performed the experiment that would shake the world: electromagnetic induction. Imagine it: loops of copper wire, a magnet moving slowly through them, and suddenly the calm wires spring to life. The needle on the instrument jumps, as if dancing with the magnet. Faraday practically leapt for joy. So that's it. Flip a switch and I can make wires dance. It may have looked simple, but this experiment laid the foundation for electric generators, transformers, and the entire modern power industry. Without it, we might still be reading by candlelight instead of flicking a switch. But his creativity didn't stop there. 10 years earlier, in 1821, he had already built the first electromagnetic rotating device, the ancestor of the electric motor. Faraday could be called the creator god of electric motors, though back then, homes didn't even have fans, let alone industrial machines powered by electricity. Tiny coils of wire rotating around magnetic poles eventually became the driving force of the Industrial Revolution itself. He didn't just discover laws, he turned them into practical tools. Faraday's laws of electrolysis quantified the relationship between electricity and chemical change. Electricity could now drive chemical reactions, and scientists could calculate exactly how much of a substance would form. No longer was electricity a mysterious lightning bolt, it was a tool you could measure, predict, and harness. Faraday also discovered that light could be influenced by magnetism, the Faraday effect. Light itself could feel the pull of a magnetic field, connecting electricity, magnetism, and light in a single elegant dance. This paved the way for modern optics, telecommunications, and even some of today's imaging technologies. In Faraday's lab, from liquefying gases to spinning wires, from magnetism to electrolysis, he essentially turned physics and chemistry into a giant, bubbling stew. Sparks flew, bubbles rose, and every experiment, no matter how messy, was a step forward for humanity. His work didn't just advance theory, it shaped technology. Generators, motors, transformers, communication devices, even MRI machines, all of these can trace their lineage back to Faraday's coils and sparks. He never chased fame or fortune, yet an invisible current of his work courses through our everyday lives, powering our cities, machines, and devices. What's more, his approach to experimentation was pure poetry. Mistakes, small explosions, fizzing reactions, they were all embraced with humor. Science, he once said with a grin, should come with a few sparks. That playful curiosity made science not just a profession but a way of life, inspiring countless scientists, engineers, and inventors who followed in his footsteps. From street corner newspaper boy to the Royal Institution's experimental wizard, and finally to being hailed as the father of electromagnetism, Faraday bridged the boundaries of physics and chemistry. His notebooks, sparks, and apparatus weren't just tools, they were bridges connecting the mysteries of nature to the modern world. His life was filled with humor, childlike wonder, and relentless curiosity, all of which illuminated the world. Faraday's experiments didn't just make wires and magnets dance, they made human civilization move to the rhythm of electricity. Electromagnetic induction laid the foundation for modern power generation and transmission. Imagine a world without Faraday, your lamp might still flicker with a candle, and every city's nights would be darker. Modern generators, transformers, and power grids all trace back to his humble experiments in a modest London lab. His theoretical impact was equally profound. He introduced the concept of the electromagnetic field, essentially giving physics a crash course in field theory. Using magnets, currents, and iron filings, he showed how forces could act at a distance. Decades later, James Clerk Maxwell formalized these ideas into his famous equations, which ultimately became part of the mathematical backbone for Einstein's theory of relativity. Newton, Maxwell, Einstein, all metaphorically taking notes from Faraday's classroom, even across generations. Faraday's fingerprints are everywhere: chemistry, electrochemistry, materials science, optics. His electrolysis laws quantified chemical reactions, his studies of light and magnetism laid the foundation for optical communication, his work with liquefied gases helped birth low-temperature physics. Every field he touched bears his mark, the sort of invisible hand blending physics and chemistry, delivering it neatly to the hands of future engineers and scientists. In short, he reshaped how humans interact with nature. He made electricity measurable, controllable, and usable. He made light dance. He made magnetic interactions predictable. His life was a turning point in science, from a boy in a dark alley selling papers to a man illuminating the world and powering the Industrial Revolution. Every time you flick a switch, swipe your phone, or start an electric vehicle, you are paying homage to a boy who once jumped at sparks. Faraday fused curiosity, patience, and intellect into a legacy that rewrote the rules of physics and chemistry, showing us that a true scientist can be rigorous, humorous, and capable of changing the world, all while marveling like a child at every spark and beam of light. Michael Faraday's influence stretches far beyond the walls of any laboratory. He didn't just pull back the curtain on the mysteries of electricity and magnetism, he brought those principles into every corner of everyday life. Think about it: you flick on a light switch, and in an instant, your room brightens, you hop on an electric vehicle and glide down the street. In hospitals, doctors peer inside your body using MRI machines. Even in high-tech labs, sensitive instruments are shielded inside Faraday cages to avoid stray electromagnetic signals. Every one of these wonders is tied, in one way or another, to Faraday's experiments and theories. Humorously speaking, your phone, laptop, and all the appliances in your home owe him a little thank you. Picture it: every time an automatic door slides smoothly, every time an elevator hums to life, even the office printer quietly whirs somewhere, Faraday's young self, the newspaper-selling boy of London, is smiling from the past. His experiments weren't just precise, they were theatrical, even whimsical. Imagine him in the Royal Institution, spinning copper wires, magnets, and currents into rotating devices, generators, and light polarization experiments. Every time a wire carried an electric current, his eyes would light up and a small grin would appear on his face, as if saying, "Behold, magic." Only now the wand is a magnet, and the spark is electricity. Faraday's life was a constant translation of abstract natural laws into something tangible, observable, and playable. Technologically, his achievements touch nearly every electrically powered device we take for granted today. The electric motor set machines in motion and eventually powered transportation. The transformer allowed electricity to travel long distances, lighting up cities far from power plants. Communication devices from telegraphs to telephones to the theoretical foundations of the Internet all trace their lineage back to his experiments. MRI scans allow doctors to peer inside the human body, while Faraday cages protect sensitive instruments from electromagnetic noise. He essentially paved the way for modern industry, power systems, medical technology, and telecommunications. His intelligence flowed quietly, like electricity itself, reaching every corner of the world. Faraday didn't just invent devices, he transformed how humanity understands science. He had a unique talent for turning complex physical and chemical concepts into visual, intuitive experiments, often accompanied by playful analogies. His Christmas lectures at the Royal Institution are the perfect example. Every holiday season, he'd stand before an audience of kids and adults, demonstrating electric currents, magnetic fields, light polarization, and chemical reactions. Sparks flew, gases puffed into the air, and the audience, caught between tension and curiosity, hung on every word. Faraday always added a dash of humor, turning science into a form of theater. Children stared wide-eyed at dancing instruments and spinning wires, while adults were captivated by his wit, intelligence, and infectious enthusiasm. Outside, London streets might have been bitterly cold, but inside his lab, it was as warm and lively as a festive market, with science as the star attraction. Faraday's approach to science communication didn't just enthrall the public, it inspired countless future scientists. Those who later drove the Industrial Revolution, built electrical devices, or explored the quantum realm drew inspiration from his experiments and lectures. You can almost picture children reaching out to touch a wire during his demonstrations, while budding scientists quietly noted every spark, every twist, every magnetic dance. In such moments, science became personal, approachable, and magical, sparking a lifelong thirst for knowledge in the next generation. More importantly, his style reflected the core spirit of science: patience, curiosity, meticulousness, and humor. He made people understand that science isn't just formulas and theory, it's a combination of observation, experimentation, and reasoning. Every failure, every splash of chemicals, every tiny explosion, was a learning opportunity, a pinch of seasoning in the recipe of discovery. As he once said with a grin, science should come with a few sparks. That pure love of experimentation and sense of humor made him a captivating teacher and storyteller, turning learning into an experience full of wonder. In essence, Faraday didn't just create technology and theories, he created a way to appreciate and understand science. Electricity, magnetism, light, and chemistry became tangible, relatable, and even playful. His life was like an invisible current, flowing through the history of science and into our daily lives. Every switch we flip, every appliance we use, every medical scan, every beam of light bending through glass or water is, in a quiet way, a conversation with Faraday's brilliance, curiosity, and humor. From a newspaper-selling boy in London to a man who illuminated the world and inspired generations of scientists, Faraday used curiosity, patience, and wit to turn science into magic everyone could feel. He proved that even someone from humble beginnings can change the world, connecting knowledge and daily life, making science rigorous but also delightful. From alleyways lined with newspapers to the hallowed halls of the Royal Institution, from tiny lab benches to the electric currents that now light up civilization, Michael Faraday's life was a true legend. He used curiosity like a torch to illuminate the unknown, patience like a steady current to navigate the fog of discovery, and relentless experimentation to unveil the secrets of nature. Every spinning wire, every sparkling flash, every twist of polarized light was his silent signature, etched indelibly into the story of science. From the street corner boy to the scientist who amazed the world, Faraday showed that ordinary beginnings can lead to extraordinary impact. His story reminds us that true exploration doesn't require noble birth or titles, just passion, focus, and a bit of humor. After all, without that humor, his lab would have had far fewer explosions, and the world of science far less laughter. So next time you flick on a light, scroll on your phone, or hop on an electric vehicle, spare a thought for that young boy, covered in soot and sparks, grinning with delight. That glance isn't just respect for history, it's a nod to the spirit of scientific exploration. Every flick of a switch, every current that flows, is a silent dialogue with Faraday's wisdom, curiosity, persistence, and humor. And if you want to change the world like Faraday did, let your curiosity light the way. Hit that like button, share this story with friends who might be tomorrow's scientists. Maybe the next person to light up the world with experiments is watching this video right now. You, Michael Faraday, a boy with sparks, copper wire, and unquenchable curiosity who lit up humanity. His legend isn't just history, it's a call to all of us: explore, experiment, and never lose your sense of wonder. After all, curiosity is stronger than any current. The people who change the world usually just think one step deeper. If this story made you see things differently, hit like, subscribe, and save it. See you in the next story.